We got Chip Brown stopping in from Texas 247 Sports. Chip, good to see you. Appreciate you stopping by.
What's going on, fellas?
How's it going?
Well, we've got about 8 weeks to size this one up, so we thought we'd do it early on here because people can't get enough of this matchup, Chip. So I'm going to get you revved up here and then turn it over to our three experts. I saw a 6-point spread the other day. Is that true? That seems a little thick. In terms of Ohio State being a favorite, I had seen like 4 points earlier in the summer, but I got to think 1 yard away, basically, from tying the game with about 4 minutes left is sticking in the craw of certain Texas players, the ones at least that have not moved on to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, this was a hell of a game in the college football playoff semifinals a year ago. And, I have to think that the stars on the Texas team who are primarily on defense, actually, Anthony Hill Jr., Colin Simmons, Michael Taft, that these guys are just chomping at the opportunity to come up to Columbus and try to even the count, if you will, because first and goal from the 1. I mean, that's all you have to say. And Steve Sarkisian. I mean, that I wrote a story this week at Horns 24/7 talking about how goal to go has haunted Texas really the last 3 years. In 2022, they're playing TCU at first and goal from the 2, first and goal from the 5. Only came away with 3 points in a 17-10 loss. Had first and goal from the 1 against OU in 2023. Didn't get in. Lost 34-30. Had first and goal from the 1 against Ohio State. Down 7 with a chance to tie or take the lead and go. They go straight backwards. Jack Sawyer, just puts an exclamation point on the nightmare. And so, Steve Sarkisian, he's got to develop an identity down there in those situations. And that's got to be a culture play for Texas, especially with, Arch Manning now. He's a better athlete than Quinn Ewers. How do you, take advantage of that? And they should have all their running backs healthy and ready to go after losing CJ Baxter and Christian Clark to preseason injuries last year. So, this should be a lot of fun.
Well, that's kind of. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I liken Sarkisian to kind of where Ryan Day was, before he won his national championship. People are waiting and thinking, is he really the right guy for this job? I guess the one good thing you can say for Sarkisian is that he did beat Texas A&M and he beat Oklahoma last year. Couldn't the Georgia thing in the championship game was a bit of a problem for them, obviously. But they're right there toe to toe with Ohio State. I think that anybody who thinks this is going to be a walkover for Ohio State just because they're playing at home, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. So. I think a lot of people in these parts eager to get to that day in late August and, be here before we know it. I know that.
Yeah, I think, Steve Sarkisian, they used to call him 7-win Steve. And then in 23, when he went to Alabama and won, Quinn Ewers, outstanding in that game, the defense. And they won 34-24. First time Saban had lost at home by double digits. And then, going to Michigan last year, I know people are like, oh, Michigan, they're no good. But that defense was legit from Michigan last year. And Quinn Ewers, chopped them up. Great game plan. They stayed away from the big defensive tackles in the middle, worked the outside, used their speed on the outside. And got it done in Ann Arbor. And they've got the longest winning streak in true road games at 11. And that will get tested to the max there in the Horseshoe. So, there's so many layers to this game, because you look at what the Texas defense did to Jeremiah Smith last year. Every time he was in the slot, they put Andrew Makuba over the top of him, and Will Howard very correctly stayed away from Andrew Makuba, who is going to be a monster in the NFL. Was a monster last year, had 5 interceptions, and Jeremiah Smith had 1 catch for 3 yards against Texas. Now Howard peppered it to Carnell Tate and worked his way down the field and made some big plays with his legs late. But Makuba's gone. So does Texas have the personnel to pull off that kind of defensive game plan again? We'll see.
I will remind people, Texas has never lost in Columbus, so they are 1-0 all time in Ohio Stadium. So don't think it's going to be simple.
I was 15.
I was there the last time then.
15 feet away. I was down there watching Texas drive into that north end zone. I was 15 feet away when Lima Swede caught that pass in the corner of the end zone, landed squarely on his back. And I said to anybody who was standing there, I go, that is a Texas touchdown. And nobody wanted to believe it, because it was just stunning. And he was just close to the out of bounds marker, but not out of bounds. So that was one hell of a play that Vince Young and Lima Swede pulled off, no doubt.
Well, Texas got some help from Jim Tressel in that game, because I remember saying the week before, I think Justin Zwick was like 23 of 25 in the opener. And I said, this may be the best thing that ever happened to Texas, because Tressel may start Zwick instead of Troy Smith. And sure enough, he did. And then I think he went to Troy Smith, and then he went back to Zwick. And every time Smith was in the game, he was making plays, moving the ball, scoring, even if it was just a field goal. But yeah, that was
I think it was 10-0 before Troy Smith got in the game.
That's right.
Ohio State was down. And another one of the plays that I will remember.
Ryan Hamby.
Yeah, Ryan Hamby dropping the ball in the end zone, certainly. All the field goals, I think they were 5 of 6 on field goals. It may have been Josh Houston was kicking. And they missed the one that, would have helped them toward the end. Not that it mattered, but the play that I'll remember is Anthony Schlegel from Texas by way of what was he?
Air Force.
Air Force, yeah. Comes on a direct blitz and he bounces off of Vince Young, does not tackle him, and Vince Young throws the ball down the middle of the field for 50 yards. And I think Malcolm Jenkins had to drag the guy down at the 2-yard line or something. That was one of the craziest plays I can remember that, here's Schlegel, big, tough guy, 230, 240 pounds, and he just bounced straight off of Vince Young like he was, one of those rubber balls that just, goes off of a brick wall. So, and not only that,
Vince Young was tougher than a wild boar, because Schlegel was insane enough that he would go wild boar hunting just with a Bowie knife.
That was a crazy day, and I recapped it on the news afterward, and I'm like, you give up all these yards and all these points, and you can't do that, obviously, defensively. But the game's changed so much in 20 years. What we saw that night won't resemble much of what we see in college football and in that game that's coming up in whatever it is, 7 weeks. So.
I've got a defensive question, because, Sark is an offensive genius. I'm sure we can get to the offensive side of the ball. But, Chip, in your opinion, who has to have the better game for Texas to win, Colin Simmons or Anthony Hill Jr.?
Well, I think both of them do. I mean, if Texas is – and they missed in recruiting at the defensive tackle position, had to bring in 5 transfer defensive tackles this offseason. Including Cole Brevard from the Big Ten, from Purdue. And
Hero Canoe from Ohio State.
Yeah, Hero Canoe from Ohio State. Levon Johnson from Maryland. Murad Watson from Syracuse was the big one they got in the spring. Probably got a chance to be a starter. But if they can stop the run I think Texas has the best edge room in the country. They've got Jack Sawyer now. They've got, the guys who can really get home. Ethan Burke, Trey Moore is still there. And then Anthony Hill in the middle is just a wrecking machine. So, and he loves the big games. Like, the bigger the game, the better he plays. So those two guys both have to be at top speed. They have to be seeing it really clearly, because I think this Texas defense has a chance to be special. I know they lost Jahdae Barron. They lost Andrew Makuba. Obviously, they lost their they lost their 4 primary interior defensive linemen in Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, Jermaine Lole, and Bill Norton. So that defensive tackle spot is a question mark for sure. But if they can stop the run the way that they have the last 2 seasons, 3 seasons really, then I think Texas is going to be able to get pressure on the quarterback. And, Colin Simmons, he's got as good a ball get off as I've seen around here in, 10, 12 years. So, and super confident kid. So we'll see if that, comes to bear. But if Ohio State can run the ball, it negates a lot of what Colin Simmons brings.
I mean, Ohio State only ran the ball for 81 yards last year, so I don't see them running for much more than that this year, which is going to, I think, make this certainly a close game. My question is, you talked about the culture plays of the red zone and things like that. Don't you expect all of that to be better now with the healthy backfield and Arch? You kind of alluded to it being able to run, because I know in the past Ohio State would be like, when they had a passing only quarterback, they'd try to tinker with like a run threat quarterback for down in the red zone. But with a guy like Arch or Will Howard, you don't need that. You can just go ahead and run your offense, and he can keep things alive, and he can do some different things for you. So don't you expect those goal line situations to be better this year just from the personnel being who they are? And I don't know what the offensive line looks like. I think you guys in Texas lost like 4 of their starters, so that has to be rebuilt. But aren't you expecting a more forceful offense from Texas this year on the ground?
Well, I think there were some who wanted to see more of Arch in the red zone last year, like in the SEC title game. It was kind of too little too late when Arch finally got in. And, he's a bigger, more athletic guy. He's working more under center. And I think that gives them a chance to, do some things with the cadence and get the quarterback in, if you need to pick up a yard or some form of the tush push. But yeah, I do. I think they should be better in the short yardage and goal to go situations with Arch, simply because, you hope he's healthy, because Quinn, that's what got him. That's why he was a 7th round pick. The injuries, he was tough. He played hurt, and that's admirable, but he was a different quarterback when he was healthy. You saw it against Alabama, you saw it against Michigan. And then when he was banged up, you saw it against Georgia and on and on. So if Arch Manning is healthy and, he brings that athleticism into those goal line situations, now you make the defense account for the quarterback, and it's a little bit more of a fair fight.
How do you expect the running back situation to shake out now?
I think everyone's waiting to see what CJ Baxter looks like, because as a freshman, he was good. He wasn't special. He ran in a gap scheme in high school, and he was still adjusting to the zone runs of Steve Sarkisian's offense, which are the bread and butter runs for Texas. And so how did he improve while watching last year? Because Quintravian Wisner is not, he's a grinder. He's not, he's not going to make you miss in a phone booth or, spin moves like Bijan Robinson. He's just going to grind out, 4 yards. And, but that that was effective. He ran it 33 times against Texas A&M, and I think ran right into the hearts of Texas fans. But if CJ Baxter is a lot better than what he was 2 years ago, that's the guy that everyone's waiting for. You know, big, strong, fast, can run through you, can run around you. And so we'll have to see. We'll have to see where he is from a confidence standpoint, because Christian Clark is the guy that Tashard Choice told me runs more like Bijan Robinson, you know, jump steps, spin moves, elusive. And we've never seen Christian Clark in a game because he snapped his Achilles in fall camp last year. So there's a lot of intrigue as it pertains to the Texas running game. There's a guy, James Simon, who's the least heralded running back in the recruiting class, who I've been told is Jarek Gibson with better hands. And Jarek Gibson is their downhill guy. He's the guy they put in the short yardage situations, the pounder between the tackles. I don't know if they'll get to him or not, but he got a lot of reps in the spring and is kind of my dark horse guy to emerge in fall camp, because Sarkisian values the running back's ability to catch the football so much. Quintravian Wisner had 44 catches last year. I think even Texas fans forget that. So I think there's talent there. They've got to figure out the roles.
Looking at receiver, that seems to be the question that I have looking at the offense. Obviously, you know, Ryan Wingo had a couple of touchdowns. DeAndre Moore had 7 touchdowns. Khalil Lockett is figured to be very much in the mix as a true freshman. I mean, with losing guys like Matthew Golden, I mean, what is the prognosis of the receiver room? I mean, Ohio State, and I've said this in pieces I've already written about looking at the game. It's probably best for both teams that they're getting each other week 1 and not week 8, when some of these positions have maybe filled in a little bit more. But, you know, what is your overview of receiver, especially breaking in a semi-new quarterback in Arch?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a mystery, but obviously DeAndre Moore is the leader of the room. He's the vocal leader. He's the guy who, you know, is at practice first, holds guys accountable. And I think people are looking at him and saying, well, he could be this year's Matthew Golden. Others are, you know, waiting for Ryan Wingo to break out because he was in the same conversation with Jeremiah Smith and, you know, Ryan Williams coming out of that recruiting class. And Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams were the only guys getting talked about last year. Ryan Wingo had some nice plays, some big plays, but had some drops in some key games late in critical situations. So he's got to take it up a notch. The guy who really intrigues me is the Stanford transfer, Emmett Mosley V, because he's a guy Texas really liked out of high school, but then he tore up his knee. He ended up going to Stanford and, you know, had 4 touchdown catches. I think 2 of them were on 4th down. Like, he was a go-to guy for them in, you know, as big as situations as Stanford could have last year. His parents are both Notre Dame athletes. His mom won the Heisman for soccer. So he's a guy, and I'm hearing that he's really kind of adapted quickly to their summer workouts and his fit in. So I think you've got those 3 guys who've played in games. And then it does sound like Khalil Lockett is starting to emerge of the freshman receivers that they brought in terms of summer workouts. So, you know, Lockett's a burner. He's in that mold of Sarkisian receivers who are 6 feet and can fly and stretch, you know, the defense, take the top off the defense. So, and I do think Arch Manning is a better deep ball passer than Quinn Ewers. So I think that excites Steve Sarkisian, because we know Sarkisian likes to, you know, take some shots downfield. And that was a bit of a struggle for Quinn all through his career, although he hit him against Alabama in 23. So we'll see what Arch Manning's got in that department.
Steve, you're muted. You're still muted.
Okay.
There you go.
Chip, you're a guy in my experience that's always been locked in with what's going on at the University of Texas. You correctly predict almost every new head coach they get before it goes public. And, not that there have been a lot of coaching changes down, 7 or 8 in the last, 10, 15 years or what, Tom Herman. But at any rate, I want to ask you, kind of go off topic and ask you about NIL. And we had a chance with Ross Bjork, the AD, to talk about NIL a little bit, but it's still as clear as mud. $20 million, football getting 15, 16 million of that at all the football schools, straight cash payments from the school to the players totaling $15 million. We're hearing now that it's going to be a $30 million price tag because everybody put all those deals in place for this season before the new rules came into effect. So you could basically spend as much as your collectives could raise up until that deadline, which for some of the top schools is going to be in that $30 million range. Going forward and trying to sign 26 players and trying to get transfers next year, et cetera, it looks to me from the outside, you have your $16 million, then whatever you can get in bona fide NIL deals that will pass the NIL Go clearinghouse, what's that going to be? $4 or $5 million bucks? That doesn't add up to $30 million. So are we going back in time to where to get above $20 million, there's going to be tons and tons of money that goes under the table again to these kids that's promised to them. And they said, we'll get it to you in a combination of a straight payout from the school, a bona fide NIL deal that will go through NIL Go, and whatever we can funnel to you under the table. Is that how you think this is going to go? Because to me, 20 million doesn't equal 30 million. And some schools are going to abide by the 20 million. And it seems to me the ones that want to win will not abide by the 20 million.
Well, and I think it's going to take a minute for people to figure out what can and can't be done. And, because we heard from Deloitte at some of these spring meetings at the conferences that 60% of deals that were already done would not have passed the NIL Go muster. So this is where it's going to get interesting. Texas, Steve Sarkisian said on the record last month that he said, we need guys to take less up front and come here, prove themselves, and then the third-party NIL deals will be waiting for them because Texas is so high profile. They play on, highly rated, highly watched games, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that sounds good. But, Felix Ojo wasn't buying that. And Texas Tech just may have set a precedent that no other school wanted to see, which is, a 3-year guaranteed deal for a high school kid.
They're blowing the curve.
They're blowing the curve. And now all the other agents are going to be like, hey, my kid's rated higher than that kid was. Where's that 3-year guarantee? And Texas is not playing that game. So not for one guy. Because Texas has had some 3-star offensive linemen like Trevor Gooseby, who's going to be playing left tackle for Texas on August 30th, develop into some good players. Sam Cosmi, Connor Williams, some NFL draft picks who were 3-star players. So, I think Steve Sarkisian has said, we put a value on a guy, and as soon as it goes above that, we're out. And that happened with Dominic Williams, who went to OU, with Michael Fasusi, who went to OU. And so Texas is, Sarkisian said, we have a lot of players who are going to need some NIL money out of the 15 million. So we got to take care of the whole team, we're not going to blow the budget on a high school kid. But I think everyone's waiting to see is the Ojo deal going to pass the Deloitte test? What deals are going to pass and what aren't? Because there may be more to that story, but I think everyone's trying to figure it out. And so we may not know for a year or two. They'll check in again at the 3-year mark, but we may not know for a year or two how this is playing out until, we see. I do know this. Greg Sankey told everyone at SEC meetings, we have to abide by this. We have to. So don't even think about going outside the lines. We'll see.
I don't want to name a specific school or anybody, but our Georgia, Florida, LSU, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, all going to abide by that, because it just feels like the quickest way to win is going to be to buy the best players. I would look at it that freshmen are not a good investment because, first of all, other than Jeremiah Smith, there's not a lot of them that are going to come in and make that kind of an impact in the first year to justify the salary, for lack of a better term, the amount of money that you invest in them. And that money is much better spent, in Ohio State's case, on a kid like Ethan Onianwa, who's coming from Rice and is going to start at left tackle with 2 years of starting experience under his belt. You get a proven commodity that you're plugging into the starting lineup, as opposed to he might be Jeremiah Smith, or he might be insert name of a total bust at wide receiver. So, to me, I think that you're going to see fewer and fewer of the blue bloods probably chase these top 20 players with big dollar deals, because it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't help you win this year unless he's Jeremiah Smith, which he was the number 1 player in the country. So I guess that's a little bit of a different. He blew the curve for all the freshmen, but to me, we're in a very messy situation. Told these guys earlier, I was playing out at Muirfield Village in a golf outing yesterday, and they asked me, well, how do you think this is all going to go? And, what do you think of this? I said, they screwed up 6 years ago when California passed that law, and the presidents, the commissioners, and the athletic directors, there was no leadership, and nobody took the bull by the horns and said, we've got to do this. They became prisoners of inertia, and this is what we're left with, a mishmash of a system that can be easily exploited.
Well, they screwed up 10 years ago because, I'm just using 10 as a number, because nobody wanted to make any sort of move on this. And they just stared at each other. And Jim Delaney, toward the end of his Big Ten commissioner career, just was mumbling something about laundry money. And, they could have put something in place. And I'm not saying that there wouldn't have been a move toward bigger and bigger payouts. That's just how it works out. But what call you what you will, whether it's greed or inaction or apathy or whatever, all of that led to this very messed up intersection that we're at right now.
Yeah, Claudia Wilkin, the federal judge, who presided over the O'Bannon case, presided over House versus NCAA, said in 2014, give the student athletes $5,000 for their name, image, and likeness. Every student athlete on your campus. And imagine if they would have done that, it would have kept the legislatures from all going and passing their own laws and leading to the Wild West. And as you stated, inaction. Everybody sat there and was like, well, are we doing this or not? And the answer was not. And so here we are.
I got a question for you, because the Steve Sarkisian stance is sounds very much like the Ryan Day stance of not wanting to pay too much for freshmen or for recruits. And then Ohio State fans see all of these guys that, they would come to Ohio State if it weren't for the money, and so they're very not happy. And they see some guys going to Michigan. They're extremely not happy. What's the fan base like at Texas right now when the same thing is happening and a lot of the guys are going to Texas Tech or elsewhere? Because Ohio State fans, at least they'll tell you, like, it feels like it's only happening to Ohio State. And it's like, it's not just Ohio State. There are other schools that have this same stance that things are not going well for, because they've kind of put their foot in the sand or their head in the sand, whichever you prefer. And then things are happening outside of their control. So what's the Texas fan base feeling like right now?
They're feeling the same way. And the thing is, you have to look at the roster too. Mm-hmm. Ohio State and Texas, there's not a clear path sometimes to playing time for some of these kids. And so they're like, well, I'm going to go over here and I'll take the money, because Sarkisian has said, look, if you're a program that doesn't have as many talented players as, say, Texas or Ohio State, then you can offer more money to one kid, and that kid, his eyes are going to pop out, and he's going to think about it, and then maybe he takes it. And so, the fans just see that and think, what's going on? Well, what about the last 3 recruiting classes in those offensive tackles that you have on campus? I mean, Steve Sarkisian's not worried about it. And so, the fans, this is that time of year where the official visit season, it's about to go quiet. So things will calm down, we think. And you still got to get to December. But yeah, Texas fans are like, what? That kid was signed, sealed, delivered Texas. He's going to Texas Tech. What's going on? And then, you look at the roster and say, okay, you still have some dudes at that position. Don't loosen your grip a little, and let's see what things look like in December.
Well, one of the examples I always use in terms of going and buying an offensive lineman, Paris Johnson, an Ohio kid, would be the kind of guy that you would go spend $5 million for. And yet he started 1 year at left tackle for Ohio State. He was a reserve as a freshman, was the starting right guard as a sophomore, and then started 1 year at left tackle for Ohio State before leaving for the NFL and going to be like the number 3 pick. Did you get your $5 million out of that guy if he was recruited? The answer is absolutely no. So I'm very convinced that you do not buy offensive line recruits, because even if they can't miss, doesn't mean they're going to play right where you need them right away and play well. So I'm not saying Texas dodged the bullet with the Felix Ojo thing, but it's just a crazy time now watching what's happening. And we'll see if you can buy some sort of a championship. A lot of coaches are convinced you can't, because you need the culture to do that. And we'll see if the culture comes.
Yeah. The one thing, even Felix Ojo's agent, Derek Shelby, said on SiriusXM radio this week that the price changed for Ojo. He was going to get more money if he could have gotten something done before July 1st. It's going to be less money now. And he said the numbers are coming down. Now, if the agents can explain that to their clients and everybody understands that there's going to be less to pass around, and that the guys who got in that window were the fortunate ones where the market went up like, a tech stock, and then it, or when the rookie salary cap came into the NFL, Sam Bradford was the last one to get the monster signing bonus. That's just tough. So if that can be relayed from the agents to the clients, then maybe we do get some form of sustainability here and not the Wild West.
It is amazing that you've got a college football agent going on. Yeah, like he's on a media tour, which is insane to me. So hopefully while he's talking to all the media, they can also talk to all the players. Sorry, Kevin.
I was just going to say, I know that super baseball agent Scott Boras is really concerned about the luxury cap, and he's never told a client once to not try and maximize every possible dollar out there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because there are going to be players that are going to go to the highest offer. I mean, it just is what it is. I'm betting on myself. I'm going to get developed wherever I'm at, and via con Dios, and let's see what comes out of it. And it'll be an interesting case study.
Via con dineros.
That's it.
Yeah, and if you're Ohio State or Texas and you've been to the college football playoff, Ohio State is the defending national champion, you can sell that. And the guys who want to win and get developed are going to listen. And so that part of it, we'll have to see how much that matters.
I know we're running out of time. I just want to ask you one thing. For Texas to be the playoff the last 2 years, and after kind of going through the wilderness, for about 15 years there, just what's your thought, I guess, about the excitement surrounding Texas football? I mean, it has to be – a lot of that has to have come back the last couple of years just because they've made it to the Final Four, the Holy Grail, whatever, the last couple of years. But just what's your thought, I guess? Are people having better thoughts, I guess, on the outside about what Texas football is all about?
Well, I have one word for Texas, coming back from its losing its way as a college athletics superpower, and that is alignment. Texas did not have alignment at the end of the Mac Brown era. You had, big money boosters with ties to the regents trying to interview Nick Saban. They wanted Mac gone. That all went to hell. And then they hired Steve Patterson as athletic director to fire Mac Brown, and he didn't do it. And then they forced him to fire him, and it led to just chaos. Tom Herman and Charlie Strong, then Tom Herman. Chris Del Conte, the athletic director, deserves a ton of credit. He came in and got the whole athletic department, marching in the same direction. He, the president, then Jay Hartzell, Regents Chair Kevin Eltife, they took the gamble on Steve Sarkisian. A lot of people were surprised when that hire happened. But Sarkisian had a very detailed plan that he's still executing. And, they wanted him to match wits with Lincoln Riley because OU was winning the Big 12. And Sarkisian came in and said, I'm going to build this thing like an SEC team, big in the trenches, fast on the outside, because those are the guys winning the national championships. And that's what he's done. And his offensive pedigree has attracted quarterbacks and receivers and skill talent. And so he hasn't made many missteps other than the 1st and goal call, against Ohio State when the big stuff is on the line. So I think Texas fans feel great. I tell them enjoy it while you've got it, because you've got alignment right now. You've got a great athletic director. You've got your facilities have been upgraded. You've got good coaching across the board in all your other sports. So enjoy it because Chris Del Conte, Joe Castiglione just announced his retirement at 67 at OU. I don't know how long Chris Del Conte is going to go, but right now things are good at Texas. And 10 years ago, I would have told you this is a terrible place to be. This is not a good job because there was no alignment. So it's changed considerably.
Hey, Chip, as we close things out, and we appreciate your time, getting back real quick to the matchup, I just had one final question. And you had mentioned in your NIL spiel about offensive line recruits and how 3-stars have come through. And obviously this program for about 10 years plus was a wasteland when it came to recruiting 5-stars along the offensive front, but not developing them. And the NFL draft was void of Texas offensive line talent. Kelvin Banks is gone. I know Brandon Baker's a big guy that has probably is the highest ceiling on the offensive line. Between this group coming back and maybe any other position group, what needs to be sorted out the most for this Texas team in August to be prepared for this first matchup?
Yeah, I think the offensive line is pretty well set. I think you've got Trevor Gooseby at left tackle, Neto Umazulu, who's a 4-year guy in the program, has waited patiently for his turn at left guard. Cole Hudson, another 4-year guy who started every game as a freshman at right guard, will be at center. DJ Campbell is the 5-star, the lone returning starter. And then, you mentioned Brandon Baker, probably going to be the right tackle. I think the chemistry, the cohesion between those offensive linemen, Ohio State's going to present stuff with Matt Patricia that they have no idea what to expect. They can look at Patricia's NFL tape, but they have no idea. So that's a lot for a group of 5 who, are just learning to communicate when all hell breaks loose, for them to handle. And Arch Manning's got to help, keep that under control, or at least react to it. And so I think that's a big, on the priority list, that's probably number 1. You can say the chemistry and cohesion between Arch and these receivers, his new tight end, Jack Endries, the Cal transfer. And that, this game is a battle of the 2 top tight end transfers, and Max Clare and Jack Endries, which is another layer to the story. And then defensively, there was special communication in the secondary between Jahdae Barron, Michael Taff, and Andrew Makuba. And it dated back to the fact that the 3 of them are all from Austin and trained together, under a trainer in Austin while they were all going to separate high schools. And then there they were, all playing together, had unbelievable connectivity. Makuba and Barron are gone. Can they get that again? And the defensive tackles, who's going to step up, be the frontline guy, who's going to be in the rotation, because again, I think the edge pressure and the linebacker play, and having Michael Taft back there as the quarterback, will give this defense a chance to be special and maybe a championship type defense. So, I think their specialists are better. They went and got Jack Bomeister from Utah as a punter, and then they brought in Mason Shipley from Texas State, the kicker, who had a perfect year 2 years ago. And so I think they feel good about their specialists and the return game. So, those are big question marks up front, the cohesion, the chemistry of the offensive line. And then if those interior defensive linemen can stop the run.
Chip, we've got your X handle right there on the banner for most of the show, so people know where to follow you. Anything else that people need to know about what you're working on?
Hey, horns247.com is the website. And then I do a daily show from 2 to 4 on the Texas Sports Unfiltered YouTube channel and app. So if anyone wants to, check in, we talk a lot of Longhorns. So a lot of college football, if anyone wants to jump in.
Game week, we'll have to hook up. No doubt about it.
Absolutely. I'm excited about it.